Week 1 overreactions. Week 1's going to arrive. It's going to be absolutely awesome. We're going to be fired up. There will be no possible way to overreact at the arrival of college football because any reaction you have to that, you cannot possibly have enough joy, jubilation, celebration for Week 1 arriving. We will embody that on this show if you can't tell already. But when it comes to the actual games being played, what are the overreactions that we need to avoid? Because in the day and age of social media and YouTube and everybody being able to have their own take, we understand now, there's going to be some takes, some reactions now that might, at the surface, seem like a fair reaction to have, but we're just telling you right now, don't take the bait. Don't believe them. Don't react to this degree. College football sickos, the season is here. Make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. We want y'all a part of this college football sicko community. Whether you're a Tennessee fan, you play Chattanooga Week 1, whether you're a Florida or Miami fan, y'all got a big game Week 1. Make sure you're dialed in here. We'll have reaction, analysis, thoughts, concerns, questions for y'all. Make sure you're subscribed as we get this party rolling into the beautiful thing that is the college football season. Thank you for being subscribed. And the first overreaction I want us to all avoid is how we perceive Nico Iamaleava after his first start. Some of y'all are like, Tennessee in Week 1, who do they have again? They have Chattanooga. I'm just going to say this right now. Nico Iamaleava is going to go off. He is going to give you as Tennessee fans, as the college football public as a whole, a lot to get fired up about. It's going to be sick, all right? Enjoy it. He's probably going to throw for a couple touchdowns. I imagine he runs for a touchdown. If he's playing in the fourth quarter, something went drastically wrong. Whole other discussion. He's going to go off against Chattanooga. And what's going to happen is he's going to go crazy. And a lot of people are going to be very quick to say, oh, man, this Tennessee team, what can Nico be at the end of the season? How good can Tennessee be? That's not an incorrect reaction, but I think the reaction that's inappropriate is we're going to have a temptation to treat Nico Iamaleava like a finished product, when in reality, this is his second start of his career, his first start as the guy at Tennessee. We would be, I think, very, very wise to just allow his situation to bake a little bit, allow him to get comfortable. Do not put finished product expectations on Nico Iamaleava just because he does numbers like Goodwill Hunting against Chattanooga. The test I think you can put towards Nico Iamaleava when it comes to actually trying to discern what he's going to be in 2024 is that game September 21st at Oklahoma. That's going to be a really good litmus test for a number of reasons. One, it's going to be a crazy road atmosphere. I'd be surprised if College game day isn't there. It's going to be against a really good defense. Say what you want about Jackson Arnold and the new offensive line and have your question marks there. We have them ourselves. But when it comes to that defense now, no questions. If people are worried about how they're going to translate to the SEC, I have no reservations about Danny Stutzman or Billy Bowman or that defensive line. They're going to be very good. You will get a good gauge for Nico Iamaleava and his progress and his trajectory based on that game. That will also be his fourth start of the season. So you have some more data. You have some more to go off of. That's the game that I'm circling. Also, before that game, he plays NC State, neutral site. The point I'm trying to make here is Nico's going to be really good. Let's not be so quick to give him the Heisman Trophy because he goes crazy against Chattanooga. All right? Avoid that overreaction. Now, here's one that we have been shouting about for a long time. Florida and Miami. Florida and Miami, post-game Twitter is going to be absolutely incredible. Whoever loses this game, the overreaction to avoid is they're fired. Get them out of here. They're not worth anything. Then whoever wins this game, they're going to say, hey, man, I know it's early, but are they a college football playoff team? Yes, if Florida beats Miami, people will make the case that Miami is a college football playoff caliber team, or so we think right now. And so we'll question the chops of Florida and, hey, well, maybe if they go 9-3, hey, we'll start to create these paths. What I think we need to point to in light of this game is another opener that Florida had 2 years ago. Utah came to the Swamp. AR went berserk, and they beat a Utah team in the Swamp. And it was magical. Everyone's talking about how good Billy Napier could be there and what AR is going to be, and is he a Heisman contender? And that wasn't, I don't think, misplaced when it comes to the intentions behind it. But look at how that season turned out for both squads. Utah went on to win the Pac-12 and play in the Rose Bowl. Florida went on to be 6-7. Again, I'm not telling you that you can't be excited about whatever happens in this game. But again, to tell you that the guy who loses this game should be fired or who wins this game is going to be in the college football playoff, it's not that simple. I think for Florida, if you lose, yeah, that's tough. And yes, it's a tough start to the season, especially with all the extra noise around Billy Napier. But Florida's going to have a lot of chances now throughout the course of this season to prove themselves. Like the schedule indicates that. For Miami, this is just a jumping off point. Like people are going to be very quick to say, especially if Miami loses, told you every single year, the U is overrated. Y'all always do this. Y'all, I hesitate to say this, but if you're tuned in, you're a real one. I actually, as of right now, we'll make our prediction on next Tuesday. Right now, I have Florida losing this game and then winning out the rest of the way to make the college football playoff. So this game very clearly does not sway my opinion on how good I think Miami's going to be. Also worth noting, when it's in the swamp, that adds a whole variable of like what the heck is going to happen in this game. It's also worth noting Miami has 15 transfers, all making their first appearance in this first game. Maybe not all 15, but a lot of them. More specifically, Cam Ward making his first start at Miami. There might be an acclimation period. It might take a few games or a few quarters for them to totally gel. So if they drop this game, again, nobody's panicking. I don't think either side should panic, quite frankly, with how good Miami I think is going to be in 2024 if they do beat Florida. If you're a Florida fan, just saying, hold our opinions loosely. Understand that week 1 is a data point. It is not the definition for what a team is going to be. Let 2022 Florida-Utah be Exhibit A for that point. Now, here's a fun one. This is going to be Sunday night. This is one of the things I love about week 1 of the college football season. It's Sunday night, and we got college football games being played. It's a beautiful thing. You got USC, you got LSU in Las Vegas. And everyone's asking the question, well, man, how much better can either side be on defense? Because both defenses now are under new management. Danton Lynn is running the defense for USC. Blake Baker is running the defense for LSU. And our temptation is going to be, if either defense plays well, it's going to be, man, the difference one offseason makes, the difference a defensive coordinator makes. They went out there, they shut down that USC Lincoln Riley offense. If USC shuts down LSU, man, they shut down that Joe Sloan offense, and he was a part of last year's, Jaden Daniels' Heisman campaign. That's not all the way incorrect. At the surface, again, that's a fair point to make. But again, it's one data point. The question I actually have coming out of this game is, well, what do we know about either offense? Like, if either defense plays well, I don't think we actually know the filter we're running that through when it comes to the opposing offense. Because in both these games, you have a new quarterback. Miller Moss for USC, Garrett Nussmeier, the gumbo gunslinger for LSU. It's their first start as the guy. Not their first start, but their first start as the guy in this new season for their respective football teams. What they are in week 1 may not be what they are in week 7. Also, for both sides, you replace right around 50% production, give or take, for both sides of the equation. Okay, like especially for LSU now, you lose not one but 2 first-round wide receivers. LSU, I think, is still going to be real good at wide receiver, but if it takes a second, that would make sense. Same thing for USC. If it takes a second to replenish some of that production offensively they lost last year, that would be understandable. For LSU, too, it's worth noting they have a new play caller in Joe Sloan. The checkpoints I think you mark to really get a good gauge for either defense. For LSU, it's October 12th against Ole Miss. Like at that point, you should be gelled as a defense. You should kind of figure out your rhythm and your tempo as a defense, playing against a really good Ole Miss offense. If you hold Ole Miss to under 30 points, okay, let's have a discussion about how good the LSU defense is. For USC, end of September, you're at Michigan and Wisconsin, back-to-back. Welcome to the Big Ten. You got to play those 2 games in a row. If you can hold up your end of the bargain in the trenches against a Michigan and against a Wisconsin, and people talk about Wisconsin being air raid now, they still will pound the rock. Ches Malusi's still out there playing running back for Wisconsin. If you can hold up in the trenches, okay, I think we can legitimize USC's defense. So I'm just saying now, if they play well defensively in Vegas, like, hey, let's go. Let's feel good about ourselves and maybe put a couple dollars down on Reddit the roulette table. But at the same time, it's week 1. Let's not overreact and crown either defense as like top 10 in America just yet. They could be. They absolutely could be. But let's hold that opinion loosely. Now, here's one that I really want to make sure we get across. Because I think the folks in Clemson, South Carolina think that we're like down on Dabo or down on Clemson. Not the case at all. Not the case at all. In some ways, that's the opinion because of the way that we feel about how that Georgia game is going to go. Spoiler alert, we think that number is probably too low when it comes to what Georgia's going to do in Atlanta that first week of the season. If Georgia does what Georgia has been known to do, which is play pretty well that first game of the season, if that happens, don't stick a fork in Clemson. Don't just write off Clemson and Dabo Swinney and say, "Oh man, Clemson's left for dead. The Dabo era is over at Clemson." That's not responsible. How are we going to penalize Clemson and Dabo Swinney if they lose by a certain number that Vegas says they probably will lose by against the best team in America? That doesn't write their story for the entire season. Like, also look at this too. 2022 Oregon, same situation. They play Georgia in week 1 in Atlanta, much like this game will be. Georgia 49-3s them. Like, it was never a game. Now you say, JD, there's some different pieces there because that was Dan Lanning's first game as a head coach. That was Bo Nix's first game at Oregon. I understand all that. But the point remains the same. Georgia did Georgia things to Oregon. Oregon went on to win 10 games that year. It doesn't write the obituary for Oregon, doesn't define what Dabo Swinney's going to be at Clemson if the same thing happens. I'm not predicting that right now, but just so we're on the same page. I think if they get beat by Georgia by a fair margin, if I'm a Clemson fan, that hurts. You obviously lick your wounds. You go back to the drawing board, but that's the key part of this. You go back to the drawing board. Honestly, failing could be just the right ingredient for the catalyst to change. We've said for a while here, we think that it needs to be a Garrett Riley offense at Clemson. Not a Dabo Swinney overseeing a Garrett Riley offense, a Garrett Riley offense. Maybe this is the game that allows him a little bit more freedom as a play caller. I don't know. I don't pretend to know exactly the situation we're walking into there with Clemson, but this roster for Clemson is still more than good enough to compete for and potentially win the ACC. Now, that would, I think, again, require a pretty explosive output from the offense, something we haven't seen recently. But don't write off Clemson if Georgia does Georgia things that first week of the season, all right? Because we definitely will. So a lot of overreactions. Be careful. Be cautious. Here's a big word for all our Scrabble players. Be cognizant. Be cognizant of our reactions and kind of hold those opinions loosely. A lot's going to happen in week 1. We love week 1. We'll be fired up. We're going to throw a mini celebration on this show when week 1 arrives. But even with that being said, week 1 does not define your season. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.